Hey everyone, it's your favorite black single mother here, Samantha, the millennial introvert, and today I want to get into the story from CNN, published August 25th, 2024. So apparently, once more, passport bros, another one bites the dust. A New York man died while on a solo trip to Colombia. It took his grieving mother 5 months to learn what happened, and we already know what happened. But let's get into the details, shall we? So Omar Watson made a promise to his mother before he left New York City for Colombia in late February. Moments before he climbed into a rideshare to the airport, they hugged in the kitchen of their Brooklyn home. She reminded him of her only request whenever he travels. I told him, Omar, if nothing else, make sure every time you get into your Airbnb at night, you message me and say, Mommy, I'm okay. Hyacinth Watson told CNN. He said he would. Her 31-year-old son sent her a message after his first full day in Bogota on February 24th, and the second day, and the third day. He did not check in on his fourth night, so she called him instead. It was the last time she heard his voice. In the early afternoon of February 29th, less than 2 days after that phone call, Omar Watson was found dead in the bathroom of his Airbnb. His American passport was on a wooden dresser near the airport unit entrance, according to a report from police investigators in Bogota. But his phone, iPad, and wallet had vanished, his mother said. And so began Hyacinth Watson's 5-month ordeal to unravel the mystery on how her only child died in an unfamiliar country more than 2,000 miles away. Without her son's foe, which likely would have offered clues, the grieving mother was left to wonder, how did he spend his final days? Was he alone when he died inside the white stucco apartment building? And why did his red canvas suitcase, which arrived months later, contain petite feminine clothes along with his items? There's not a day that I don't break down. There's not a day that goes by that I don't wish I had taken a flight and gone to see him, she told CNN in July, wiping her tears with trembling hands. I don't sleep very well at night. I barely eat. My entire life is different, and nobody is telling me how my child died. 2 days of silence and then a dreaded phone call. As an unmarried online stock trader and entrepreneur who lived with his parents in Brooklyn, of course he lives with his parents. The last article I read, I did not see that he lived with his parents, but I was guessing he was someone who probably lived with his parents. So Watson was not tied to his desk job. His iPad was his business portal, and he took it everywhere he went, his mother said. He was an avid solo traveler and had been to a handful of countries, including Japan, Brazil, Mexico, and France. Everywhere but Africa, thank God. After his 1 week stay in Colombia, he was planning to go to Portugal. He just wanted to see the world. Any country he could travel to, he did, his mother said. I never ever imagined that his death would happen during his travel. So mom seems to not be online, and or she's in denial, and or she doesn't really know her son. But I highly doubt, as a passport bro, that he did not explain to his mother that he's a passport bro and he's sick of the women in Western society or in America, and so he's going to travel the world for women. But of course he probably would not have had this conversation with his mother, because everyone knows that usually when these men, mainly black men, go to these other countries outside of America and visit and travel, is for sex tourism, is what it's called, i.e. prostitution, whoring, tricking, being a John, so on and so forth. There's another word that's escaping me, but basically just trying to use women as sex objects. And I know that there are a lot of countries that are actually cracking down on this. I know Brazil, which I'm sure his mother said yes was one of the countries that he went to as well, are very reticent of the issue of men coming over to essentially take advantage of women who live in poorer countries and use them as sexual objects, essentially, because these men do not promise marriage, or they probably do promise marriage to get what they want, but they're not actually marrying these women. Like they said, he's single, he's been to all these countries. Really? All these countries, you've yet to quote unquote find a wife? Because that's not what that's not what he's looking for. He's looking to be a whore and a 304, which is what they call black women all the time, and just women in general. But they don't call themselves that, and they're the most promiscuous people on the planet is men. They go everywhere they can to get some sex. Like, you're literally going to go across the whole globe to do everything but what you should be doing, which is treating people right and treating people well and being a good person and just meeting people on an organic level. I think I recorded a part of a live that I was in yesterday where the man that came up, he was definitely a passport bro. He just sounded like one. He was so rude, it wasn't even funny. And even if he isn't a passport bro, he sounds like one. So he's the rhetoric that was coming out of his mouth explains why people do not like you, explains why you're traveling alone. You don't have any friends apparently, and you're traveling alone because women do not like you because you're mean. And they will sit there and blame everyone but themselves as they're being very off-putting, very rude, very unlikable, and then trying to complain and say, I'm leaving because all these women here are trash. Literally, an entire country of women are trash, is what they're saying at this point. So you couldn't get along with black women, white women, Asian women, Hispanic women, Native American women, Dominicans who are over in America, the Brazilian women who are over, because everyone's in America. America's a quote unquote nation of immigrants, right? So everyone's in America, and you're telling me that out of all these groups, Japanese, etc., you couldn't find someone in America to settle down and spend your life with. And of course, he couldn't and didn't because he wasn't trying to. He wants to just use women up as like they would say for single black mothers, pump and dump, and just basically just have these women for whatever sexual gratification needs they have for themselves, and then just drop these women like a bad habit and get out of there. Like, they don't care about these women. And so when you go to these types of countries, they take care of their people. You'll see that more as I go into the details of this case, but these countries do not want you coming to their country, mistreating their women, taking advantage of their women, taking advantage of the fact that they are disenfranchised, poor, already oppressed. I don't know if these men have ever, because I feel like these men are probably even hooking up women who probably aren't typical prostitutes. So it's like you're basically probably pretending that you're like how they do to us here in America, pretending that you're going to marry her, pretending that you're going to take care of her. And essentially you're going there to get what you want and then leave. I wager to say that a lot of these men are probably actually even leaving these women as single mothers. And that's probably another reason why the country's cracking down, because you're leaving these women with children that the country now has to take care of, because we know black men don't like taking care of their kids. And I can show you statistics if anyone's like going to sit here and cry about it. I finally found the statistics of how often black men are becoming deadbeat dads. So let me finish this story because I have so much to go over. So Colombia is an increasingly popular travel destination for Americans and other. What I take issue with are men who are disingenuous as to why they're traveling. They're probably lying to the women that they are in contact with and promising them things. And even if they're not, I mean, a lot of these countries are just known to be very racist, and they just don't like black men. Black men, I believe, do not have a good track record anywhere. And it's like they basically have now gone to spread their dust globally because they've lied to themselves and feel like, oh, we're the most desirable men. And it's like, I don't know about that. Like, some people, like, I will give you, as a black woman, I do feel the black men are the most attractive men in the world physically. But when you put the total package together, I just don't think that they are viable partners. They're not suitable men to pursue any type of relationship with. They're not marriage material. And of course, this is not all men, but the percentage of black men who are giving a very bad reputation of black men in general is huge, and is very unfortunate, to the point where I've actually had to tell my sons, be prepared for a world that is not going to like you for certain reasons. We already had to deal with racism, but now black men who are incels, red pillars, part of the black manosphere, they are so awful. And now that we have the internet, their voices have been extremely elevated to the point where people have created, a new stereotype for black men. And I have all black sons, so that is very angering to me. And that's another thing that I have my channel for, is to speak out against the ghetto culture, the hood culture, the thug culture, and the red pill manosphere, we hate black women culture, the bashing of black women, the bashing of black single mothers. I speak out against that. My sons, I am not raising them to be these type of men to hate women. I've raised them to respect women and to love women, and they love their mother. And it's like, no, you need to extend that to all women. Like, treat all women with respect. Do not harm women. Do not treat them like sex objects and just do whatever. Like, I can't stand that, and I've instilled that in my sons forever. Now, can I say that my sons are going to listen and follow everything and say, no, I'm not? Because Colombia is an increasingly popular travel destination for Americans and other international tourists. From January to June this year, more than a quarter of foreign visitors to Colombia were from the U.S. That is like a lot. So more than 1/4 of foreign visitors to Colombia were from America alone. And that's only from January to June. It's only 6 months. That's insane. And they said this is according to the nation's tourism ministry. It listed Bogota, I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry you all if I'm chopping it up, as having the largest percentage of non-resident foreign tourists. Sorry. But traveling to Colombia, which also has a history of racism against black people, is not without risk. Shortly before Watson's visit, the U.S. Embassy in Bogota issued a warning about 8 suspicious deaths of U.S. citizens in Medellin between November 1st and December 31st. So they just issued a warning, and these passport hoes, like men, I'm completely convinced do not listen. Very hard-headed group of people. And I don't know if this is across the board because I'm not around every different race and ethnicity of men, but I know for black men, hard-headed. They just are. Like, I don't care how much you try to talk to them, try to reason with them, try to educate them. They do not listen. And this comes from being a black mother, to being a black wife, to being a black daughter, a black, sister, like black aunt. Like, they don't listen. They don't listen. And this is insane that the U.S. Embassy would issue this warning about 8 suspicious deaths just from between November 1st to December 31st. And this is like right before he went to visit in February. So he did like no research. He didn't see these stories. They were pretty big stories. I heard about them and I wasn't even looking for them. They just pop up and it's like, oh my gosh, another one dead. Like, this is crazy. And he's just like, I'm just going to go here and think it's going to be a good time. And it's like, are you okay? Like, what is happening? I don't even understand. So last year, the embassy warned that robbers were drugging tourists in the country with scopolamine, a drug nicknamed Devil's Breath. So this is going to play a role like in the rest of the story, because I'm wondering why they didn't get back to their mother. Like, no one seemed to want to work with his family, Watson's family, as to why his death happened. They didn't want to release any autopsy results, any toxicology reports, nothing. But yet we're knowing that scopolamine is a drug nicknamed Devil's Breath that is given to these tourists so they can be robbed. And literally everything follows in that detail. Like, how did his phone, wallet, everything disappear if this is like a natural cause of his death? And some people are like, oh, well, somebody came in later. No. We're not going to do benefit of the doubt, especially when they're not releasing all the information. So the mother is seeing this warning. She's thinking her son's a victim of foul play, which she's probably right. She rehashed their last phone conversation over and over for any hints of health problems. He told her he'd vomited and had diarrhea for a few days, but was feeling better after getting medication from a local pharmacy. She recalls asking him why his breathing sounded a little slower than usual, but he insisted he was fine, she said. She'd considered getting on a flight to Bogota to pick him up and bring him home to New York City. He gave her his Airbnb address at her insistence, but he told her not to worry. Okay, so I'm going to keep my comments at that notes up. But this man was on a mission, okay? He was not trying to, go back. And mama is overstepping a bit, because he's a grown man. He's 31. He's not a baby. So I asked him if he wanted me to come and get him. He said yes, but then he changed his mind. So I said, okay, he's a young man. Maybe he wants to stay a little while longer and enjoy his visit, she said. When he did not answer her calls for the next 2 days, she knew something was off. It was unlike him not to return her calls. She contacted the U.S. Embassy in Bogota and implored them to check on him at the address he gave her, she said. On March 1st, the embassy called her with the tragic news. That's another thing. If you're traveling alone, like, I hope you're giving your details as to where you're staying, etc., to somebody you trust, like your loved ones or a friends or something, because things like this could happen. And as you can see, he didn't even want to give his mother the address because he knew he was up to no good. And he probably thought she was going to come popping in, and who knows if she was going to. That would have been a bit much. But I think you should just do it more for safety reasons. But this is what women typically have been taught to do forever. I still see some women doing some crazy stuff that I'm like, what are you thinking? Keeping secrets from family members, especially when you're like moving in these crazy ways. Like, people tend to keep the secrets because they know they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, or things that people are not going to like if they knew what they were doing. But that just opens up more doors for, because of your shame, people can use that to their advantage, which is why I say fuck shame. But, you know, people have the shame of like, oh, doing sex tourism and I shouldn't be doing it. I know I shouldn't be doing it. So now they're keeping secrets, and that makes it easier for criminals to do what they do because they know that you're probably over here alone. Nobody knows where you are. Nobody knows what you're doing. You don't know anyone over there except maybe the person you've been, texting WhatsApp with or whatever. And so it's just harder to get information if something were to go wrong. And that can happen even in America. Like, I just tell people, just don't be so secretive. Because the language barrier complicates a mother's search for answers. For the first few weeks after her son's death, Hyacinth Watson was numb. She and her husband felt adrift without him and unsure of how to navigate what felt like a bureaucratic nightmare. And it's funny because it's like literally the first time I've heard that she had a husband in all this story. So I'm like, what? She has a husband? What's going on there? And somebody actually left a comment on Newsbreak and said, like, the dad doesn't give a fuck about, like, what happened to Omar Watson. And I'm inclined to agree. Either that or he just doesn't talk a lot. Because I know the older generation of men, thank God, do not talk as much as the younger generations. The younger generation talk about a lot of nothing. It's like, just stop talking. And I remember this one guy told me, like, if you knew what was going on in men's heads, like what we were thinking, you would just be disgusted by us, like extremely disgusted. And after hearing men talk now for at least 20 years, since they've gotten microphones and podcasts and internet to blather all across the world with their thoughts out and loud and wrong, I just constantly go back to that guy saying that. And I'm like, oh, he wasn't lying, because what they're talking about is what they're saying out loud. And I'm actually happy they are, because now we know more about them, but it is gross. And it's like, ugh, like, this is what you're thinking. So yeah, I wish, it's weird. It's a catch-22. Like, I like that men are speaking more so that women can know that they're dangerous, or like, learn more about these men. But at the same time, like, if I'm dating you or I'm married to you, I cannot be dating or married to a talker. Like, you talking too damn much is too much feminine energy for me. Why are you talking so much? I don't know. Men are not usually the what do you call it? The communicators. Like, they don't really communicate verbally. They're known to be more physical. Like, they come up when it's time to act. Like, if somebody's doing, like, if they have to go to work to make the money for the family, if they have to protect the family, like, men are physical. Women are known to be more verbal, and we communicate with the kids. We're nurturing. We talk about feelings a lot, and and say I love you, so on and so forth. So plus, women just like to talk. I feel like because our brains function differently from men, our minds are more complex. And so sometimes it's easier to understand your thoughts when you can speak them out in the open, or talk about your thoughts with other people. And it's not to say, obviously, that men don't have thoughts, but their brains seem to be a lot more simplistic in how they are designed, and they compartmentalize a lot of things. So they're really kind of like just thinking about one thing at a time, versus women who are always kind of like overlapping with like things we're thinking about. We're always multitasking, and that's just where our brains work. And, of course, like, I would say men should talk to their friends more, their dads more, the men in their family more, therapists more. They should talk, but not to the women, because some of the stuff they're saying, we probably will be turned off. I'm not even going to lie. So So here they said they needed to figure out the logistics of sending his remains back to New York. The stunned parents also needed to plan his funeral, but without her son's phone, she didn't know how to share the awful news with his friends. Literally could just go online, but anyways. Or he probably doesn't have an online presence, because I did do a little bit of research and couldn't find anything, so I don't know if he's under a different name, but I would think him living with his parents, maybe they can have access to computers he uses and just get online that way. So the flurry of documents started arriving from Colombia. So he said Then the flurry of documents started arriving from Colombia. The language barrier, she doesn't speak Spanish, left her struggling to interpret their meaning and nuances. The U.S. Embassy in Bogota sent her an initial investigative report compiled by local authorities and dated February 29th, the day her son's body was found. A colleague from her job as a teacher assistant in Brooklyn sat down with her and helped her translate. So he passed away, he was murdered February 29th, allegedly murdered. February 29th. She didn't hear about it till March or May. I mean, it's really dragging out, the details and how she's getting this information is really crazy. So Watson shared the 8-page death investigative report with CNN. It describes the moments leading up to the discovery of her son's body and paints a picture of the scene. In the report, a person described as the Bogota's apartment's administrator said he last talked to Watson around 4 p.m. on February 28th, the day after his mother's call. The administrator told the police he could not reach Watson the next day, so he entered the apartment and found him in the bathroom without vital signs, according to the report. Why would he be trying to reach him? That's really interesting to me as well. Omar Watson was found in a kneeling position on the white tile floor, wearing a black cotton t-shirt and slumped against a door frame, according to the report from police investigators in Bogota. So first responders noted some over-the-counter medication in the apartment, including a Unison PM pain bottle, an unopened Dayquil bottle, and a bottle of Dolof, a Latin American pain medication similar to Tylenol, along with a brown stain that appeared to be vomit on the floor near the kitchen. Yikes. I bet if we look up scopolamine, that's probably some of the traits. That's probably some of the things it has you do is vomiting. So the report said apart from his passport and suitcase, there were no other valuables at the scene. Where did all his stuff go? And they listed his cause of death as to be established. So finally, the family learns about the autopsy results. For months, Watson tried to find out how her son died and what happened to his wallet and electronics. She called and emailed the U.S. Embassy, which told her in March that the autopsy would be finished in 3 months, she said. Why is it taking 3 months, y'all? Don't get me started. Anyways, in her frantic search for information, she unsuccessfully tried to reach the owner of the Airbnb, she said. The host of the Airbnb apartment, listed in the investigator's report, declined to comment when asked by CNN via the app for information on Watson's death. Sorry, but I don't have any information about that, the host said in a message. So it says, our hearts go out to the Watson family during this incredibly difficult time, and our team stands ready to provide our support, a spokesperson told CNN. Watson told CNN in late July that she had not received any autopsy or toxicology reports. I don't know what happened down there. I cannot get any answers. I keep trying to get information, but nobody is listening to me. She said an autopsy was done, but I have not received any results on the cause of death, which is crazy. Because this is late July. So remember, he died in February. It says February, March, April, May, June. That's 5 months. And I thought that whomever she spoke to said it was going to take 3 months to invest, to have the autopsy completed. So even with it done, how do you still not have a cause of death? So in early August, CNN reached out to the Colombia Attorney General's office, which oversees criminal investigations. In an email, Ofer Valendia Forero, a prosecutor for the agency, said an autopsy report was received from forensic investigators on April 24th. The autopsy determined that Omar Watson died as a result of an interlobular pulmonary thromboembolism associated with the right deep vein thrombosis, and determined his cause of death was natural, the email said. So the forensics so they said that the Ferrero said that Omar Watson's cause of death was natural in an email. The forensics investigator ruled out signs of violence or trauma to the body, it said. So a deep vein thrombosis typically develops when a blood clot forms in the leg. The risk is higher when people are sitting in tight spaces for long periods, including while traveling. Pulmonary embolism is a life-threatening condition that occurs when a clot breaks off and travels to the lung, cutting off blood flow. CNN called Hyacinth Watson with the news. She gasped when told what Colombian investigators reported caused her son's death. After a long pause, she asked what that meant and how long investigators had known about it. When told the autopsy was concluded in April, she cried, her soft cries echoing through the phone. How is that possible? I did not know that. No one told me. Why didn't they tell me? She asked. She asked to get off the phone to compose herself and notify family members. It's unclear why the autopsy results were not shared with Watson's family sooner. Valendia, the Colombia prosecutor, did not respond to additional questions and declined CNN's request for the official autopsy and toxicology results. In the initial report, Colombian investigators said they requested additional tests, including toxicological, psychopharmacological, and alcohol tests. It's unclear whether those tests were done. For saying further details in the case were confidential and would be shared with the embassy. So the U.S. State Department did not respond to CNN's questions on whether the embassy received the autopsy results in April. In a statement, it said the embassy helped transport Watson's body and personal effects back to the United States, but did not divulge other details. His suitcase arrives in Brooklyn, setting off a new wave of emotion. So Omar Watson's body arrived at New York City's John F. Kennedy International Airport on March 21st, nearly a month after his flight took off from the same airport. An accompanying death certificate listed the cause of death as natural. At the time, Watson's mother wondered how the medical examiner in Colombia arrived at that conclusion. In a final attempt for closure before her son's funeral in early April, she tried unsuccessfully to get an autopsy done in New York City. So Watson was laid to rest 2 weeks later in Brooklyn. At his memorial, loved ones shared stories about his love for cooking, the Thanksgiving holiday, and a good medium rare steaks that Kerry Walton, his cousin. Walton said he misses his sense of humor the most. Watson wasn't the loudest person in the room. Of course he wasn't, because they tend to be kind of awkward, socially awkward, antisocial, standoffish. But his comedic timing was impeccable, he said. Yeah, they're sarcasm. Like, they can be funny, but it's like, my main issue with these types of men is the way they treat women and people, but especially women. It's like, you're just very rude. Sometimes at family gatherings, he jokingly mimicked his mother's Jamaican accent. Like when he had a good meal and was full, he'd say, "Me belly bottom a drop out." Walton said, "I miss our time spent together exploring different restaurants, how we would eat to the point we could hardly move, and make fun of each other after." 3 months after the funeral in late July, FedEx delivered Watson's suitcase to Brooklyn, setting off a new wave of emotions. Inside the suitcase were his clothes, along with dresses, blouses, pink sandals, and silver hoop earrings. When I first heard this, I thought, is he a cross-dresser? But they said the clothes are like very petite, so I'm like, okay. Like, I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. So at first I was just like, maybe he's a cross-dresser, and maybe that was his big secret or whatever. But no, he's doing sex tourism. Most likely. His mother said the clothes appeared new, and while her son was social and made friends during his solo travels, he did not mention meeting anyone in Colombia. Of course he wouldn't, because he wasn't meeting anyone. He was having some fun sex and just like trying to roll out. "I don't know of a girlfriend. The suitcase made me more confused," she said. Months later, his mother is still struggling to cope. Even with the autopsy results Colombian officials provided to CNN this month, Hyacinth Watson says she has a lot of questions. She's still trying to reach out to authorities in Colombia for more details. "I'm thankful for that little part of the information, but it's not enough," she said. "I'm wondering if that pulmonary embolism was the only reason. Is there more to the story?" she asked. "Why didn't anyone tell me the results when they came out in April? Where's the official autopsy report? Where are the toxicology results? I want to know, was there anything else in his system?" The thought of her son's final moments alone without his family there is too much. The thought of her son's final moments alone without his family there is too much for her to bear. She talks to a therapist weekly to help her cope and takes part in church youth activities to keep her busy. "The kids remind her of a young and curious Omar," she said. But when she's alone with her thoughts, a lot floods through her mind and she second guesses herself. She wishes she trusted her instincts that day in February and gone to Colombia. And she thinks about that last hug in their kitchen. "If only I knew," she said, her voice cracking. "I would have given him a longer hug. I would have held him tighter." I'm actually surprised like they didn't add that she wouldn't even never let him go. So yeah, it's just really sad, but these guys are bringing this onto themselves because they hate black women. I didn't. It was definitely noted, and not lost on me, that they brought up that he makes fun of his mother's accent. Why not his father's? When he'd eaten too much, and yes, I could be nitpicking, but it was noted. Okay, and yeah, these guys just really hate black women, and I feel like maybe some of this is karma. Maybe it is the universe balancing things out because of how black men have been treating black women for so long. And yeah, a lot of it is probably just karma, and the universe likes balance. So that part too. So I think what would be best, actually, I know what would be best for black men is to respect black women. If you don't respect anyone else, you need to respect black women. Put respect on our names, respect black children. Mistreating the people of your own race is most definitely a sin. You want to talk about the Bible all the time, but mistreating people in your own race and not being a protector and a provider of that group, when you know especially that we're the most oppressed in our countries all over the globe, is a travesty, and it's definitely a sin. You have to take care of your own before you can go take care of others. You have to take care of yourself first so you can take care of others. So yeah, it's just really, it's just crazy how black men treat black women. And the comments, of course, were on Newsbreak. I'm not even going to go through them, but everybody knew this is why he was over there. If you don't know, your head's been in the sand, because they make it these incels make it very well known. That's like their comeback, because they're sassy. That's their comment back whenever they're mad at black women, especially, or just women in general. Like, oh, that's why I've got my passport. Bye. Because we already know you're not a catch. And you're not a catch because of the way you look. You're not a catch because of your attitude, the way you behave, how you treat women, how you think women are beneath you. Like, who the fuck are you to think that women are beneath you when a woman gave birth to you? You wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for a woman. And yes, you can add in a guy, but as we all know, like you all like to say, once again, we're going to throw it back in your faces that, once you impregnate a woman, it's up to her, right? So she didn't unalive you, and she created this human with our bodies, and then we had to give birth to your big-headed asses, and now you're sitting here like, oh, I'm better than you. How are you better than me when you wouldn't even be alive? You wouldn't even be alive if it wasn't for me. You lived off my body for almost a effing year. Like, even when they get out of your stomachs, they're still hanging off your breast, eating. They're still relying on you for forever. And we know majority of the times it's a single black mom that's raising these big-headed guys. And then they grow up and they're like, oh, we hate women and you're beneath us. You need to submit. Submit to what? Submit to what? And I'm tired of people bringing up the Bible. Don't nobody follow the Bible like that anymore. People don't even go to church like that anymore. There's studies and numbers coming out by the droves, article after article after article, talking about how people are walking away from the church because they know it's a load of crap. They know it's a load of bullshit. We have too much information at our fingertips to still be blindly following some BS. Even when I was a kid, the church didn't make any sense to me the way they were explaining the Bible. It sounded completely opposite of what they were trying to tell me it was meaning. It didn't make any sense. And I was a child. Yeah, so when I got older and I did my own research and started reading books on my own and going down that rabbit hole, I learned for myself that all these religions that we recognize in this day and age are man-made, and they were created to oppress people. That's why there literally have been wars since the beginning of every religion's existence to force people to convert to their religion so that they can control them. It's called indoctrination. And I was literally just on a panel last night where this guy was like, oh yeah, they can have the Bible in schools because that's not indoctrination. The fuck are you are you stupid right now? What is wrong with you? And it's like a young guy, I think. Like, what's happening here? It has to be you don't know any better. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, maybe you don't have people around you to educate you. Maybe they're still looking crazy in a church somewhere. But what the F? Like, are you kidding? And you just know these people don't open a book to read, save their lives. Like, what is that saying? Like, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. That makes so much sense to me, though, when that person, I think it was a guy, I can't remember if it was a woman, said that in this one live I was in, because I'm like, that explains a lot, like why they don't go to college, why they won't go to a trade school, because they didn't learn how to read. You can't learn anything if you don't know how to read. If you're not a fluent reader, and we can tell by the way they write that they're not all literate, they're struggling with their words, because if you can't read, if you can't spell, you most likely cannot read anything. And you most likely have not been reading anything, because then you would know how to spell things, because you would see all the words. That's why black men are just staying very dumb. And I feel like this is men of all races, because they refuse to educate themselves. I feel like they see being educated and being smart is weak. It's a sissy thing. It's something for women. It's feminine, and we're supposed to be quote unquote masculine. And I would actually put that under toxic masculinity, because how crazy is that? That you think is masculine, more masculine to be uneducated. So you've got all these dumb dudes running around wanting women who are majority of the times more educated than them, more successful than them, the breadwinner out of the two, that she would be the breadwinner in the household. You want us to submit to you? Why? Because you have a penis? And women are waking up, and I feel like women were always awake, to be honest, because things are going to happen naturally as they should. So back in the days when they were trying to make women of all races go back into the kitchen, after the men came back from war or whatever, women were unaliving them. They were poisoning them with thallium. They were poisoning them so much that they had to take thallium off the shelves, because it was supposed to be a rat poison or something. And women were, I guess, you know how we do now, how we talk to each other and tell each other things. I think it got around like, this is how you can unalive your husband and get him out your face. But women were doing it sometimes for entire families. They were sick of their mother-in-law. Here's a little bit of poisoning. They were sick of whomever. Here's some more poisoning. Like, they were just unaliving men, their husbands, left and right. And then you had the women's rights movement. So when we finally got some extra rights and we didn't need men, we were gone. Because women knew. Have you ever been like in an office and you just knew you were smarter than your boss? It's infuriating. Like, you're like, why is this idiot talking to me right now? Why does this person make so much more money than me? And why are they getting to be in this position higher than me when I know I'm smarter than this person? I always feel like I was like one of the smartest people in the room when I was in corporate America. And that's why I left. Because I can't dumb myself down. And when men tell you to submit, that's really what they're saying, is lower yourself beneath me, because I'm lower than you right now. And I know I'm lower. And instead of me doing what I need to do to raise myself up higher, I want you to quote unquote, humble yourself and lower yourself to be under my level, which is fucking in the depths of hell. Can't nobody get low enough to be under these men to save our lives. Like, are you kidding? You know how low you would have to be under these males who don't want to do anything to better themselves? So you'd rather get a passport and travel your ass way to another country just to get over on the system. And in this case, the system would be also patriarchy, which men should really be going after. But they don't. Instead, they punch down on women, figuratively and literally, because they can't go up against the real men in power, because they're too cowardly to do that. So instead, you attack women and try to force us underneath you, which is not going to happen, because it's not natural. It's not natural to want to be enslaved, which is literally what a lot of these marriages are nowadays. It's not natural to want to be underneath someone who you know is beneath you. So So you can think all day long like, oh, I'm thinking this woman is inferior to me. Women are inferior. You can think in your delusional mindset like whatever you want. You can think whatever you want. It will never make it true. You can think as hard as you want. You can vote the orange man into office to make it feel like a man again and put the woman in her place. You can do whatever you want. It will never mean that it is fact and that it is true and that it is natural and the way that things should be designed in the universe, in this world. I am a divine believer, and I know that things that are meant to be will be. If things are forced, then that's not natural. And it's like anything, everyone has a limit. And it's kind of like being like a ticking time bomb. Like you're just waiting for that pressure that you're putting on women to explode. Because if people love slavery so much, why didn't black men just stay enslaved? What was the big deal? Like, why did you want to be free? But then black males will turn around and play dumb. And I definitely think it's an act. Because I see them doing it all the time. They'll understand racism, but they'll pretend like they don't know what sexism is. The fuck? Like, it's literally like the same thing. They're like, oh, yeah. If black men can't get jobs the white men have, then that's racism. And if they're being paid less than white men, that's racism. But when we say, okay, so there's also gender pay gap. That's why women don't make as much as men. What are you talking about? I know 3 women who work in the medical field that make women, and like they'll have, here come their anecdotal whack ass stories, and no one cares about and no one believes. You don't know anyone. You don't have any friends. You're in your basement somewhere looking goofy as hell. That's why when you come out, you don't know how to interact with people because you don't socialize enough. You're not socialized. You're not well socialized. It's like being a dog. If you don't socialize a dog well, he's going to bark at everyone and try to attack everyone when he comes out of the house. Does that sound familiar? So, as usual, I didn't want this video to be very long, but it just goes the way it goes. And yeah, this guy was definitely a passport bro. No one's surprised that he's been unalived. And I don't think anyone that does not have their head in the sand believes that this guy was natural causes. That's why he died. It's natural causes. And none of us believe that he just went over there to see the world and travel. Were girl clothes in your suitcase? And where's your phone? Are they trying to hide WhatsApp messages and pictures being sent to you? And why are you traveling by yourself all the time? Why not go with friends? Oh, because you don't have any. Or you're doing some shady, weird shit that most people are not going to be like signing up for. Or they're going to judge you like, man, that's weird. Like you don't know yet. When honestly, to me, I feel like if password bros are so loud, don't y'all have like it's weird. Like y'all can't even get along with each other apparently, because shouldn't y'all be able to come together and be like, let's go take a passport hose trip? Why don't y'all travel together? And this goes back to what people have said, like men don't even like each other. It's just a sad existence to me, honestly. You don't even like each other. So I don't know how you're going to like women and children. It's really weird. It's like, what is your point on this planet if you don't like other humans? They name like 5 or 6 countries he's traveled to by himself. And people can say, oh, maybe he just wants to song. I don't know. But I'm like, no, that's interesting. Like, I don't know. Like, I think when women do it, black women especially, it's because we are tired of everyone doing things to us and harming us. But, I mean, a lot of times women do go on, like, a girls' trip, travel with the girls, travel with their kids, their families. These black men, a lot of times, they don't have no family. Or if they do, don't nobody want them around because of how they treat everybody like crap. And so they're off on their lonesome. And it's not by accident. Like my biological sperm donor, he literally died alone in his little apartment, in his bed. I don't know what happened to him. Didn't care enough to like research it or investigate it. He has brothers that can do that. I was like, he didn't give a shit about me in life, so I don't give a shit about him in death. So thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.